Go live.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Detroit Sports Web Chat here on WXYZ.com. I'm your host each and every week, Justin Rose, joined this week and every other week, it seems.
Does seem like that, doesn't it?
Like Adam Strozynski, with Adam Strozynski from Detroit Podcast. And, in another week, another big storyline hits Detroit. Calvin Johnson. What did you hear? What did you think when you heard it first yesterday as the news broke that he is retiring?
Would it shock you if he did?
No.
I mean, the way this is, the longer and longer this goes on, the more and more I feel like he's already done. His both feet are out the door. Mm-hmm. So the longer this kind of stretches out, and then, you've got ESPN doing what ESPN does, and you've got the Lions doing what the Lions do, and there seems to be some kind of miscommunication there. And in the end, it just seems like Calvin's already got both feet out the door, and all he's doing is waiting to grab his knapsack with all of his gear and just kind of right off into the sunset.
Yeah, well, we're gonna debate this topic at length in the next 30 minutes or so. But we also have recruiting analyst Tom Van Haren from ESPN. His National Signing Day is on Wednesday, so we're gonna get him on the line. We're gonna talk to him. But we also want to hear from you, so we want to make sure that you are able to communicate with us throughout the show, because your questions and your input are a vital part of what we do here each and every Monday. So take notes of this. How do you get involved? Well, it's easy. You can tweet at us. JRoseWXYZ is my Twitter handle. Max White. Max, let's say hello to the people.
Hello, people.
Max White, WXYZ. He's our sports digital producer who's taking all those questions you guys send in. And Adam Strozynski from Detroit Sports Podcast. Detroit, let's see, your Twitter handle is what?
Adam R. Stroz, S-T-R-O-Z.
And give your plug for the Detroit Sports Podcast. I will be on Friday.
At Detroit Podcast, that's right. We're going to have you in for a one-on-one. Yep. It'll be good. So you can find out all kinds of great information about Justin.
Oh, super.
It's going to detail his career. It's going to be good.
Oh, boy.
It'll be interesting.
I don't know about that. But anyways, we also have the phone lines that are open that we want to get you in at as well. 248-356-0077. The number's right there. That's why I do this. 248-356-0077. So get the calls in. What do you think about Calvin Johnson retiring? Is it a failure on the Lions' part? Is it him failing to stay in the league and try to contribute and try to win? Where are you at with it? Because there's two sides of this story with the Calvin Johnson retirement thing. Is it like a Barry Sanders moment? I don't feel like it's as sudden or as shocking as the Barry Sanders retirement. Now, the timing of it is much different, as we've talked about before. Barry Sanders retiring right before training camp, whereas now the Lions have, if it is true, by the way, let's put the caveat out there that the Lions are standing by their comment that they made early on about after the season, saying, look, he hasn't told us and we haven't told him what our plans are yet. So they're sticking with that. Adam Schefter usually doesn't just spout off about things.
Yeah, he's usually well connected.
I'm pretty sure it's true. Let's be honest. I think he's just waiting for maybe the right time to announce it. But I thought he was retiring since it first came out. Since I think Terry Foster first said that he was contemplating retirement.
I don't disagree with that. I absolutely think that why would you come out and say something to you about that? It makes no sense. It makes no sense to say, I'm mulling retirement and then not coming back a week later, like, you know what? After first thought, I go, well, I can't quit right now. I can't walk away from the game.
I want to touch on something you said a few seconds ago where you kind of compared it to the Barry Sanders retirement. If you remember with Barry Sanders, we're going into that offseason, Barry Sanders wasn't really nicked up, wasn't really beat up. The last 5 years, Calvin has been basically bludgeoned throughout the season, and he's missed a lot of games. I know last season he was able to complete 16 of them, but if you go back and you look over the last 4 seasons besides last year's, he's missed multiple games for multiple reasons with different injuries.
Yep.
And this year, it really seemed like they kind of nursed him through the season. He got to take some Mondays off, got to take certain days off during the week because he could hardly walk. So looking at it this way, Calvin's just beat up. He's hurt. The guy has lived his last, 10 years in a constant state of pain. Barry Sanders, I don't ever believe was that beat up. You got to remember, too, Barry Sanders, I don't think ever took a head-on shot either because he was so elusive.
Right.
So he, for the most part of
it was a different type of.
For the most part,
it was a different game.
He was pretty healthy. So when he retired, it kind of came out of the blue and shocked everybody, especially with him faxing in his resignation and doing it the day before camp started. This has kind of come out 2 days after the season was over. Everybody, it's kind of almost been like getting you prepared for it, just really slowly kind of walking you through the steps to make the blow a little bit softer for you. But he's done.
Yeah.
He's done. Even if he does come back next season, if they somehow coerce him into coming back next season, where's his heart going to really be at?
Right.
You don't want a guy like that on the field because he's done. He's already checked out.
Well, according to Scheffner's story, just a couple of highlights from it from ESPN.com. Apparently, Caldwell told Johnson not to rush his decision, to take his time, but out of respect to Caldwell, Johnson agreed to do just that. But he basically told him the day after the regular season ended. That's what the sources are telling him. He's pretty content with his decision, according to someone who knows Johnson well. I think that when you look at this, it's a different game. 10 years in the league now is not like it was back when the game wasn't as fast, wasn't as brutal, wasn't as hard-hitting as it is today. And the thing you have to also look at is the rate of which there's more and more players that are stepping away from the game before the age of 30. I mean, I think there was a chart I saw that there was only like 4 people that retired in 2011 under 30, like early retirement. And that spiked to like 12 players and then 15 players. And I think there's over 20 players that are now just saying, you know what, the game is no longer worth it for me. I can't play at the level with these young kids because 23, 24-year-olds are coming out of the college game and they're playing,
A prime example of that is San Francisco. If you look at last year at San Francisco's team, they had so many people walk away from the game just prematurely saying, hey, I'm done. I don't want to do this. I don't want to risk getting the concussions. I don't want to risk having CTE. I don't want to risk my body anymore. I don't want to do it. And they just walked away. It doesn't matter what the price tag is and how much money you'll make. They don't want to do it. So they're just walking away.
Exactly. And there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
And that's the thing I think that I don't see this uproar so far. I haven't really monitored it too closely because it's not official yet. But I haven't seen this uproaring from fans going, oh, what a quitter. He's a quitter. I don't think that there's a narrative out there that can be supported that Calvin Johnson is turning his back on the Lions or turning his back on the game of football. I think that this is I'm totally okay with this decision. I've said before time and time again, receivers, for the most part, are replaceable. They're a dime a dozen. Mm-hmm. You find guys that kind of, excel. And Calvin Johnson's a different breed, but he's also a dying breed. The big prototypical 6'6", 6'7" outside threat is kind of a thing of the past in today's NFL. We've talked about that before. Antonio Brown, DeAndre Hopkins is a guy that, think of all these receivers, Julian Edelman.
Yeah, I was going to say Edelman.
These are the guys that, Benny Fowler and Emmanuel Sanders are playing in the Super Bowl.
Let me ask you this question.
Against Ted Ginn Jr., who's, a small dude. There's no big receivers anymore. And it's okay. For me, it's okay. I'm totally okay with it.
Do you feel like this is okay and this isn't getting hit with this overwhelming pushback? Like, oh, he's quitting, he's a quitter, he's never won anything, he's this, he's that. And there's not this giant uproar because people are more aware of what these guys go through now. I mean, you just had a movie that came out that kind of discussed how concussions were found and what they've done to players. And we've seen players like Junior Seau who have driven his truck off a cliff. And just guys who have gone through different things and taken their own lives because of the impact that football has had on their day in, day out lifestyle.
I think that I agree with your general point that more people are aware of the problems of football. Because I remember growing up, when I first started playing in 1990, even 6, 7 years old, when you start playing the game of football, it's get up, get hit again. Get up, get hit again. Get up, get hit again. Now it's kind of like, okay, well, if you really do take like a severe shot, the game of football coaches and trainers.
We used to do drills where we laid on our backs, popped up, smacked each other, laid
head
back
to
down,
head,
popped
head to
back
head.
up.
And we should do that drill. I'd knock you out, though. I'd knock you out.
You're bigger than me.
But
you do realize
that's true.
Right?
That's true. I got about 50 pounds on you. The general community is more aware. Certainly, that plays into the fact of him and people being like, okay, we just got a tweet from Salim. He said, it's official. Is it official now? I would say I'm happy for him getting out while he's relatively healthy. I mean, it's not official yet, so it's. I would probably say it's at a 95% that it's. I would be completely shocked if it
goes
like,
the opposite way.
I'm coming back. I don't know where you guys are getting that information from. But I'm with you, Salim. I think that if he gets out, then we can all say, look, he set the record for the most receiving yards in a season. He's up in the top echelon of all-time receivers.
And he's the top 15 wide receiver of all time.
He's going to live. That will live in infamy here in Detroit. And you just clap your hands. You say thank you for your service. And then you have to get into the conversation that we're going to transition to was his career a failure?
And we're getting a lot of questions submitted to us online. Do you guys have flashbacks of Barry Sanders with the recent news? One person says Golden Tate can be a viable number one. Nancy said, enjoying the chat so far, tired of people comparing Barry to Calvin. Barry did much more than Calvin. Calvin equals wasted career.
Those are harsh words.
Nancy!
I don't know.
Whoa! Monday morning, Nancy. She is a fierce one. You know, I'm having flashbacks to the Barry Sanders, but I'm also, like most people, have become more aware of what football does to a human body and what it does to the brain and what it does to the life and the long-term effects. So where I'm good with him walking away is he's saying, look, I'm not going to play at a high level. He's not quitting on the team, guys. I don't believe that.
This is for a lifestyle. You got to realize he has a child who I believe is maybe 3 to 5. He's younger.
He's getting married.
Yep. So he wants to be able to live his life basically the same way you and I do. He doesn't want to be able to bend over and not be able to get back up because something's either gone or blown out.
It's terribly important for him to continue his charity work down in Atlanta. He wants to go back to Atlanta. These are all, I mean, it's like everybody who finally hits their peak at a job, they're like, I got to move on.
Right.
Football is a job, people. I mean, it's still football at the end of the day, but
he's done it all except for win the ultimate prize. And I think that's where everybody kind of
fault.
Exactly. And that's where people I think are like his career is a waste. He was so good, he was so talented, and for probably a 4-year stretch, he was the best wide receiver out there, bar none. And he didn't win anything. Never even won a playoff game.
If anyone's going to be looked at as a failure for this, I'm looking at the franchise.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I mean,
because he was a part of the 0-16 season, and that's when he racked up, I think, all of the yards.
This is what the Lions do. I mean, they've had 2 players that are sort of once-in-a-generation players in Calvin Johnson and Barry Sanders. Both are retiring at 30. Well, one retired at about 30 years old. The other is possibly and probably will retire at 30 years old without, Calvin Johnson has never won a playoff game. He's only been to 2 playoff games. Barry Sanders was with the team when they won 1 playoff game, but, I mean, it's the Lions organization.
I mean, you have to look at other great players who didn't win at all.
But do you think Calvin Johnson retires if he's with another team? Do you think if he's on the Patriots he retires, or if he's on a team that's close to contending, maybe?
That's such a subjective hypothetical that it's almost dangerous to even try to debate that point, because you could say, well, yeah, if he has a chance to get back to the Super Bowl,
if you look at it this
maybe
way,
I'll play one more year.
If he had Tom Brady as his quarterback for the last, we'll say, 7 years of his career, he would have won a Super Bowl. Yeah, there's a good chance he probably would retire now because he's done it all.
And, Max, to your point, I think that if he really wanted to win, if that was the last thing that he wanted to do, he would ask for a trade. I want to go somewhere where I can win. I got 1 year left, and I can't win with the Detroit Lions.
Which I don't understand why they didn't sit there and trade him at the trade deadline. Send him to Carolina. He would have fit so perfect with Carolina. You could have got some value back for him. He could be playing in a Super Bowl right now.
And don't you think that he maybe he had to, if he really did come out and tell people he was retiring at the end of the season, then he probably was telling people at some point during the season that he was thinking about retiring.
Well, he came out and he told Matt Stafford and Stephen Tulloch during the season, went to them in private and said, "Hey, this is going to be my last year. This is it. I'm done." And then he told Jim Caldwell at the very end of the year, "Hey, I'm all done. No more." So I mean, people knew, and it just. This season was kind of a disaster, especially in the beginning. Second half, they kind of righted parts of the ship, but they played nobody, so read into that what you will. And again, he goes down in history as having all these records, but not winning anything, and that's what bothers a lot of people.
Yeah. Matt Derry gets in on Twitter at JRoseWXYZ. Do you think Calvin telling Stafford shows that he isn't as mad at Stafford for getting him killed with those throws? Chris wants to know, can Adam share a story about who messed up his face from hockey? Apparently,
I could.
We'll get to that at the end of the webcast, so that's a tease for you. Stay tuned for that. Keep your questions coming in about where are you with this Calvin Johnson thing. Honestly, I want to know if you look back and applaud his career here, or if you think Where are you at with this issue? Because you could be in a lot of different places. Is this the franchise fault? Is it the Calvin Johnson turning his back on the team? Is it okay? Are you applauding this decision? I also think of the future ramifications of what it has for the Lions moving forward. Look, they're going to save like $13 million. He's going to have to pay them back.
Great.
They're going to free up tons of cap space. So if you want to make a run at a free agent wide receiver out there, go do it. You got the money to do it. The reason that the Lions hindered and couldn't put any talent around Matthew Stafford and Ndamukong Suh and Calvin Johnson is because those three players demanded like 60% of the cap. So you've got three players demanding half of your salary cap, and then you're going out there and you're trying to find supplementary pieces that are going to fill the voids, and that's when you get that second-level talent, that third-level talent, and you're trying to have starters who shouldn't be starters, at least full-time starters.
I mean, you had a cornerback who was trolling the fields in a Vespa for most of the season.
Yeah.
With Rasheed Mathis. I mean, the guy was like
that
100.
mental image is amazing.
Do you know what I'm saying? Exactly. Driving around, he's like those people at Meyer who drive around in the rascal scooters, picking stuff up and putting it in their baskets. Honestly, that's what you had for a cornerback because you couldn't do anything because you had no money.
Yeah, and this will open up the opportunities for them to go out and find somebody. They'll be able to comb through the draft, maybe pick up a fourth-round pick like a Martavis Bryant was for the Steelers. Look what he did this year. His second year in the league, he turned it on.
Do you realize every 4 times that guy touches the ball, he scores a touchdown?
Yeah, that's pretty good.
It's pretty amazing.
Good, yeah.
There's some fantasy advice for you. Go pick him up.
That butt catch he had was in Denver was awesome. Or in Cincinnati, excuse me. That was awesome. All right, so we are going to.
Here's a good question from Terrell. Are the Lions better or worse without Calvin? He's starting to think better.
I think they're better. And they have. Let me expand on that.
Yeah, clarify a
before,
little bit because I think you can't just say a blanket statement like that.
You're very, very true. I think that they're going to be just fine without Calvin Johnson because what Calvin did offensively is he demanded a double team a lot of the times. Okay, so some people are like, well, that will make him worse because he's no longer out there. No, it's going to make the team better because of just what we talked about, salary reasons, and you can find another viable wide receiver. As far as the question about Golden Tate being a viable number one, I want them to go out and find another guy who's opposite side of him that demands the type of attention that Golden Tate
Alshon Jeffrey's a free agent this year.
Bang, bang, bang. I was going to bring him up because he's that prototypical type big guy. So if you want to go out and get him, take him from your division rival, I don't know if that would happen, but it's something that you can consider.
I'm sure he wouldn't mind a change of scenery.
No, looking what's his face did with the Jets, Brandon Marshall, leaving the Bears. So there's a couple of options. I think that the Lions are better off without. Now, if you're talking about 24-year-old Calvin Johnson, 25, come back, play. You're better with them.
We need you. Yeah. We need you. Yeah.
But I don't think that them losing him is going to make them go from a 7-9 team to like a 4-12 team.
More to your point, they have more flexibility now where they can fill more holes because they have more money. They're able to sit there and build a more complete team, whereas before they had so much money allocated to, like you said, 3 players. You had Ndamukong Suh, you had Calvin Johnson, you had Matt Stafford. Ndamukong Suh left. You were still paying some of that cap hit. Now you have Calvin Johnson, Matt Stafford. They're still sucking up a lot of money. Calvin's leaving now, so that just leaves Matt Stafford. You now have a lot more funds that you can allocate to different positions, and you can go and you can address better talent now. And you're right, that will make you a better team.
Yep.
Whereas before you were kind of pigeonholed because you had all this money going to basically 2 guys last season. Yeah. And you couldn't do anything else. You absolutely couldn't. And on top of that, I think a lot of their plays, everybody sat there and they complained and they screamed and they threw a fit when Calvin Johnson didn't see the ball or didn't get targets or didn't get touches. Now you don't have that problem. You don't have to force feed Calvin. Because we had conversations about that last season where Calvin's not touching the ball enough. Calvin's not seeing the ball enough. Now you don't have to worry about that because you don't have Calvin. You can go wherever you want. You can do whatever it is that you want to do. Now you get to really see what your new offensive coordinator can do, what kind of plays he can devise for maybe a lesser talent but more of a complete team.
Still don't think that you can necessarily. I mean, yes, other wide receivers in the league are lesser talents, but
per se.
The Golden Tate, would you say he's a lesser talent than Calvin?
No, I think he's.
You know what I mean? Like that's what I mean. He's not like this. He's no one. Not across the country. People aren't going. Oh, if we would have had Golden Tate, like we would be.
Right. I think he's a very good wide receiver. I think he has very good hands. If you go and you look at his drop rate, it's very minuscule. But again, Calvin is different. It was like you said, he's a dying breed. He's a mammoth man who, at certain points in his career, coveted a triple team, and he still went up and rose above 3 different guys to pull catches down and score touchdowns. Those guys just don't fall off trees.
Right. No.
They're not just made. And it's like he came out of a laboratory.
And that's and like I said, that's where I can concede the conversation being like, yes, Calvin Johnson will be missed because of his size, sheer athletic freak ability.
Right.
Absolutely can't replace that. It's not a dime a dozen. However, finding a productive wide receiver who can fill the void left by Calvin Johnson will not be difficult, in my opinion, especially when you have money to go out and try to find somebody and pull in a free agent or pick somebody up in the draft.
And you look at what he's done over the last 2 or 3 years, he's been on the downside of his career now, and he hasn't been ultra productive like he was when you were saying like he's 24, 25,
right, exactly.
when he was in his prime.
Right.
So I think everybody kind of holds on to those memories, and they're like, oh, we need that guy.
We need that guy.
Well,
you
haven't
haven't had that guy in years,
exactly.
so you wouldn't get him again next year. Real quick tweet, getting from Lance. Do the Lions trade Stafford for picks? There could be a huge market for him, and Quinn is known for stockpiling picks. At this point, I don't think the Lions are going to blow it up.
I wish they would.
Trade
him to Houston. Send him to Houston. It would fit out. Oh, it'd be perfect
for J.J. Watt.
We got
that'd be great. Could you imagine that? 2 monsters on your DN?
Yeah, right.
Whoa!
That would never happen.
Arguably my favorite comment so far in our webcast history, and this is a good segue into what we're talking about next. This is a question, more of a comment from Ric Flair.
Oh!
He said, "I can't wait to meet Justin on Wednesday." Woo!
Woo!
So,
what's up, Rick?
Ric Flair will be at signing day. I doubt that's actually Rick the Nature Boy, but still.
You know, I met him once in West Virginia.
If you're going on Wednesday, I'm pretty
No, Casey
jealous.
Hollins and Brad will be on the coverage.
Because you got Ric Flair there, Derek Jeter, Tom Brady.
Yeah. I'm just going to go hang out with Mark
It's going to be
Antonio.
an all-star.
Jim Harbaugh will be there.
It's going to be a boring fest in East Lansing where they sign their best class ever.
So we got Tom Van Haren, ESPN recruiting analyst.
Yep.
Seth, can we call him?
Does this bother you? Does that bother you?
Yeah, let's call. Yeah, we can call him now.
No, it doesn't bother me that they're. Look,
I really do feel like Michigan State gets overshadowed all the time by the things that Michigan does.
It's not that to me. I look at it like, look, every school's going to do their things differently. Everyone's going to, and look, Harbaugh has flair, not just Ric Flair, but like he has that charisma. He has that.
I wish he would come out in a maize and blue boa, just in a sequins robe.
The guy is in the newspaper for helping people in traffic. He's in the newspaper for taking his shirt off. He's in the newspaper. You know what I mean? Like we're talking.
It's like it
he's
always
a polarizing
follows.
figure, and that's okay if that's the way that if that's the way that Michigan wants to do it. That's the way that Michigan's going to do it. And Jim Harbaugh just came out in the Players Tribune with his own written piece. A really good thing about coming back home to Michigan and how happy he is there.
Oh, it's great.
It's a really good article. Check it out. I tweeted it out earlier if you want to check it out.
It's also on WXYZ.com.
Good plug. But it's
a great website.
That's how they want to do it, and that's okay. And the glitz and the glamour and stuff, and still it's all shiny and new. So it's something that I don't, as a Michigan State grad or a person who follows that program, I follow both programs equally as close. They just do it different ways.
Right.
And while a Michigan State fan may be like, well, this is over the top, and gosh, what a waste of time. It's like Michigan thinks it's pretty cool. All the kids that are going to be there are going to meet Tom Brady and Derek Jeter and Ric Flair. And, that's what they want. That's how they want to do it. That's how they're going to do it. So Michigan State's going to have a pretty standard, and it'll be interesting to ask Mark D'Antonio, like, so this is it, huh? And see what he has to say, because that someone is going to ask him, hey, you know what's going on in Ann Arbor right now?
Yeah, they got Ric Flair and Tom Brady. He's going to be like, so.
Yeah. And so
that's exactly what it is.
That's the difference of the cultures a little bit. And, once we get Tom here on the phone, we're going to have him call in here in a minute. So, but that's funny. That point is brought up because I do think that, I don't know if you have an opinion on this. We'd love to hear your opinion on it as well. 248-356-0077. Are you, as a Michigan State fan, are you quirky? Are you looking at Michigan's little party on Wednesday as a weird thing? Are you not? Are you a Michigan fan who thinks it's great?
As a Michigan fan, I sometimes think all of the hype and all of the media coverage, I don't want to say it's a negative light because all publicity is good publicity, right?
To a certain degree, yeah.
I don't think it's a bad thing. It just sometimes I'm just like, this isn't the way Michigan normally does it. But you're right, Harbaugh's going about it totally different. I mean, the dude's climbing in trees. He's sleeping over at people's houses, which I think is totally weird.
Totally
but
weird.
He's doing it his way, and like you said, he's a polarizing character.
Yeah.
And that makes the things that he does very polarizing. And it's just kind of the way it is.
Polarizing figures. I know all about polarizing figures, and a certain polarizing figure that joins us now via the unnamed hotline. That's a sponsorship. We can get that. That's an opportunity. Want to sponsor the hotline? You can do it. Tom Van Haren from ESPN.com, recruiting analyst. He's actually getting that FaceTime out there on SportsCenter today. Tom, what's going on, bud?
We have a busy week, a busy day. We got a lot going on. Signing day is approaching, so there's everything is happening is a phrase that I'm going to be uttering over the next couple days.
Tom, you were on the Suburban Ford 7 Sports Cave yesterday, and we talked a little bit about the accelerated nature of recruiting and whatnot. Signing day this year seems to have a lot of drama going into it. Is this year different or the same as other years?
No, I do think it's different, and I haven't pinpointed exactly why it's different or why there is more drama, but I do think there is more drama this year. And Jim Harbaugh has added to that. I think, I just mentioned earlier today about Jim Harbaugh and Michigan recruiting. He's kind of changed what they've done. You look at Brady Hoke's last class at Michigan, and he had all but one prospect committed by August before signing day. Now here we are, just a few days away from signing day, and we're talking about Michigan. They're in the headlines, and Jim Harbaugh has them at the forefront. So, we've seen a ton of decommitments happen with a lot of these prospects. From January 2015 to January 2016, we saw 387 decommitments just in this 2016 class. So, there's a lot of switches, a lot of flips, a lot of decommitments. There's social media has added to that. I don't know that there's one true answer as to why, but I definitely do think there is a little bit more drama and a lot going on right now.
Hey, Tom, I want to introduce you to Adam Strozynski from Detroit Sports Podcast. He's on with me today. He's got a couple of questions for you as well.
Tom, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Excellent. Me too. So Jim Harbaugh has come under a lot of scrutiny lately for the way he's gone about his recruiting, sitting there pulling some commitment letters from some guys as we approach signing day. Nationally, how do you think that's getting gauged, and what's the reaction to that?
Well, for one, I actually talked to a coach about this. He said Jim Harbaugh, the negative stuff, it kind of just bounces off of Jim Harbaugh. He's got thick skin, and he doesn't really, it doesn't really impact him because he knows what they're doing, and he knows the direction that they're going in. And you look at all this stuff, and it's kind of snowballed into one topic that the national media and everybody has kind of piled on, and they've run with this topic and talked about it, so it's become an issue. And I spoke with Michigan's recruiting coordinator recently, Chris Partridge, about all this. And, I think with each decommitment and each recruit that we've seen in the headlines recently with Michigan, it's a case-by-case scenario. Each one has been different. And I think maybe if there was a negative here for Michigan, maybe it was the communication wasn't 100% there. I think looking at these prospects, though, I think there's another side to the story. There's another side with Michigan as well that Jim Harbaugh mentioned at his press conference with Ward Manuel, that it's a meritocracy, and these prospects also need to hold up their end of the bargain. There's an academic side to this. President Schlissel, the president of the university, mentioned that coaches can offer prospects and they can take commitments, but they can't admit prospects into the school. The admissions office does that. So I think he said that on purpose. I think that was strategic as well. There's two sides to this, and unfortunately for the coaches in this situation, they can't comment specifically on recruits until signing day, and we'll see if Jim Harbaugh does comment on it. I do have a hunch that I think he will comment on it. We'll see what he says, though, if he goes into specifics or if he just kind of gives a broad picture of maybe what happened.
Yeah, Michigan's recruiting class as of today ranked 5th in the country. Michigan State's 19th according to the ESPN Recruiting Services rankings. Tom, give us a couple of names for each school, if they could close on that, and where you think both schools will finish when it's all said and done on Wednesday night.
Sure. Michigan State, there's an interesting prospect out of Ohio. He's not originally from Ohio. He's actually not originally from America. He's from Africa, Prince Salmon. He's played defensive end, but I think maybe an offensive tackle in college. He's kind of grown. He's grown through the roof. I believe he's about 6'7", 6'8" right now. He's a guy that I could see Michigan State being in on until the end. And then you talk about both schools, to segue over to Michigan. Lavert Hill, the local prospect out of Detroit King, I think he's probably one of the bigger pieces right now, and he's one of the bigger head scratchers right now too. I don't think a lot of people really know where he's going to go. I think Michigan and Michigan State probably ends up at one of those schools, whichever one he lands at. I think is getting a really, really good prospect. And then for Michigan, I do think this is going to be an interesting signing day for Michigan. You know, number 1 ranked Rashawn Gary is the main target out there, or the biggest target out there. He announces with us on signing day at 1 p.m. on SportsCenter, and I think the general consensus, everybody believes that he's going to go to Michigan. I don't know that for a fact. It's just kind of, you know, from hearsay and gathering information. I do think Clemson's in the picture. He just took an official visit to Clemson this past weekend, and I do think that they made an impression on him. So we'll see where he ends up. I think a few schools could be in that conversation, maybe Ole Miss as well. So going to be an interesting signing day for both teams.
Tom, I'm looking forward to watching you on SportsCenter here in about 10 minutes. I'll give you a quick little plug on that. Appreciate you joining us for a couple minutes today, and as always, have fun out there in Bristol. All right, bud?
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
All right, see you, babe. Thanks, Tom. All right, well, there he is, Tom Van Haren from ESPN. I open up the recruiting page, and look what do I see. A year of recruiting adventures with Jim Harbaugh. So Michigan is clearly back on this national stage when it comes to recruiting. They've been in this top 10 with Brady Hoke's classes over the years. The product didn't turn onto results on the field, and that's the way I kind of want to take this conversation is it's fun. Recruiting is fun. It's a great thing to follow. I know people do it religiously. People are paying.
People get so hyped up about it.
They get so hyped up about it. And then it's almost like its own season of football. And then once it happens, you hardly hear from these kids until 2 or 3 years later.
Say, yeah, it's like 3 years later you sit there.
It is a fun thing to realize, but know that maybe only Rashawn Gary is going to be a guy for Michigan that comes in and plays right away as far as impact freshmen. There's only a handful of guys. Jabril Peppers was that guy, kinda. Remember his freshman year? You probably don't. You remember his sophomore year?
You do.
Because he was unbelievable. So, again, it's going to take time for these guys to get to college, learn the system and learn how to be a student athlete, which is a very difficult thing for some of these guys who've kind of been pampered a little bit throughout their high school career. So it is a fun thing. Recruiting is a fun thing, but I'm not ready to anoint anything for anybody until 2 years from now when I see these guys making impacts as redshirt freshmen or redshirt sophomores.
I mean, that's the thing. It's an entirely different game. I mean, it's not a huge percentage of kids that make it from high school to Division I college football.
Very small.
They're playing against guys they've never played. They're playing against guys that they've never played against before, and guys in forms they've never played against, because you're not usually playing against yourself in high school football.
Yeah, if you're the best player on your team in high school football, you're playing against. I was a very, very, very average football player, probably below average. There are probably people out there who would say I was below average. But
don't worry, I was right there too.
I was getting dominated. I remember there was a linebacker who played for Anchor Bay, and he was going on, and I was a guard, and I had to block him. All 6 foot, 180 pounds of me as a guard was trying to block this 6'4", 240-pound freak athlete. We get killed. So he should beat me. I mean, that's kind of the whole thing. But then he goes up and he starts to go against a 280-pound offensive guard who actually has size and strength, and he doesn't run him over like he ran me over. Mm-hmm. I don't remember that guy's name. I'm having bad memories now.
You're going to go look this up, aren't you?
Probably.
This is one of those things where you need to look into your crystal ball and you need to kind of project. And it's cool to get excited about it. Like, okay, cool. Michigan's got a top 5 recruiting class. Michigan State's got a top 20 recruiting class. Everybody wants them to be number 1. It's not going to happen, though.
No.
Right? So you look into your crystal ball. You're not going to hear of these guys next year. You're probably not going to hear of them in 2 years. But you're right. Year 3, year 4, that's when you're expecting some production from these guys. And that's when they start to become more of a household name for you.
Right.
And it's all about sitting there helping them to mature and helping them develop over the course of those 2 years. And that's what I think Mark D'Antonio has done such a great job of. He goes and he grabs 2- and 3-star kids that these recruiting services put out there, and he develops them and he gets them into the NFL. I mean, if you go back, you look at a guy like Le'Veon Bell, who I will argue with you is probably the best running back in the NFL right now. All right? He sat there. That was a guy that Michigan didn't want. That was a guy that Alabama didn't want. A guy that Clemson didn't want. Nobody wanted him. It was all MAC schools that wanted him.
Ohio, and I think Bowling Green were the only 2 to offer him.
It was all MAC schools, and it was Michigan State. And he took a chance on him, brought him in, developed him, and now look at him. Best running back in the NFL. And that's what Mark D'Antonio does such a great job of. And it's how he does it with these guys who are maybe not as high level, or they're not guys that you're going to see on ESPN when they sit there and have signing day. But he goes out and he grabs these guys and he does a great job developing them. And I think that's the hope that everybody has with Harbaugh. He's going to develop those guys.
And I think he will, because we've already seen in 1 year with the same roster that they had. My big gripe going into last year was, how is Michigan going to be better? They have the same talent that they had. They're not having anything different that's, they have the same players that they had from the year before where they struggled and they didn't make a bowl game. How are they going to just automatically turn it around and win the Big Ten? They did. Coaching. Harbaugh did an unbelievable job. So he'll do that same type of thing with these athletes. And for me, recruiting it's like I said, it's fun to follow. But when I look at it, I project 3 years down the road. And when I look at how things are going to go for Michigan and Michigan State, I think Michigan has a real chance with the returning starters that they have and the key pieces that have been developing to win the Big Ten next year. I think 2018, for me, Michigan State's best next chance to win a national title will be with this class as juniors and sophomores and the other pieces that they have around it. I mean, but that's how I look at the recruiting mesh with.
Would you say the same thing with Jim Harbaugh? Because now he's getting a chance to bring in his guys that he's recruited, and then by 2018 he'll have 2 years to teach them. I'm not saying you were missing out. I just wanted to.
I definitely think that, like, we've seen Michigan have so many victories in February when it didn't matter over the last 5 years, 6 years, 7 years with Brady Hoke and Rich Rodriguez. I mean,
we had 4 years of the September Heisman. Come on.
Exactly.
With Gardner and Denard Robinson.
And what was the McGuffey?
Sam McGuffey.
Sam McGuffey.
Yeah, I mean, you had all of the recruiting victories in February that won you 0 championships.
Exactly.
So until these recruits get to campus and get into the program and get infused in what they're supposed to be doing, they're just that, prospects. Some are going to be great. Some are going to be bad. Your Le'Veon Bell point is a great one. Who would have thought? But there's been guys that have been D'Anthony Arnett. He was one of the most, 4-star wide receivers, like #1 wide receiver in the country. He ends up picking Tennessee over Michigan State, goes down there, catches like 12 balls his freshman year, transfers back, sits out a year. When has he ever contributed to his 4-star ranking? Never. No offense to the kid. But, I mean, if that's what you're going to say, a 4-star kid was supposed to be all the be-all, end-all, and he wasn't.
Right.
Ronald Johnson was the best wide receiver to come out of Michigan in a long time. He went to USC. Do you remember this kid?
I do. I remember hearing
Rojo, as his nickname. He went out to USC, had an okay. He was the #1 wide receiver in the country. Went out to USC, had a very marginal career. I don't think he ever made it into the NFL. That's the #1 receiver according to the rankings. So Rashawn Gary, while everyone says he is the next big Ndamukong Suh type defensive tackle, maybe he doesn't live up to those. We don't know how he's going to. I mean, hopefully he will. I mean, you always wish the best for these kids.
A prime example, something that I like to point at. I sat there and I used to watch Allen Robinson. I used to sit there and I used to write for a couple different newspapers. And I watched Allen Robinson when he was playing at Orchard Lake St. Mary's. I thought he was good. I didn't think he was extra special in any way.
Right.
That guy ended up, I believe he was a 3-star recruit, ended up going to Penn State, had a really good season or a really good couple years at Penn State, and now he's playing in the NFL. And he's a stud in the NFL. But I remember watching him when he was in high school, and I was like, he's okay.
Yeah.
Like, he's not super quick. He's got decent hands, and he's got okay size, but what? There was nothing there that you were just like, wow, that guy's going to be a stud. And that's kind of what happens. They've got these 2 or 3 years, like we're talking about. They sit there and they mature. They kind of fill out a little bit, and next thing you know, they're doing big things for your program. And that's what I think everybody hopes. Whether you're bleed green and white or you bleed maize and blue, that's what you want. You got that 2 or 3 year window there where they sit there and they develop, and you're hoping that your coaching staff can do something with them And it's not like the Hulk era where you would get these top 5, top 10 recruiting classes, and those guys would basically, what you got them in as freshmen, that's what they were when they were sophomores, what they were when they were juniors. That's what they were when they were seniors. There was no development. It was a straight path. Some of them went down even. There was no trajectory up.
We got about 15 minutes left on the podcast here, so we want to get you guys to get your last questions on recruiting. You got a couple for us over there?
Yeah, one from Mitch. I think if you make commitments binding, then you solve the problem. I don't think you can.
He's talking about the recruiting.
I'm guessing the decommitments.
Yeah.
I mean, and Tom Van Haren, who just joined us, has an article on ESPN. It's an insider article, so you can only get the first few paragraphs if you're not an insider. But it says decommitments are a recruiting reality, and they're here to stay. And then, I mean, it's just, with the rise of social media and everything else, it's just that's what's going to happen. Omar said, why can't schools talk about recruits while recruits can go on Twitter and spill the beans? Well, the NCAA.
Well, and
it's really a flawed system that the NCAA has set up here. And unless you're going to adjust the whole, unless you're going to change the entire thing, this is what you're going to have to live with. You're going to have to live with a coach climbing a tree and having sleepovers and pulling commitments from guys, and those guys either not living up to their end of the bargain, like he said, or whatever the actual story is. Because again, two sides to every story.
Right.
Somewhere in the middle, the truth is. It's what it is. And don't expect Michigan or don't expect Harbaugh to come out after signing day and sit there and put these kids on blast that the commitments were pulled from. You just don't expect that. It's going to be one of those things where it's just going to end up being what it is, and decommitments are going to be a thing.
I do think that there is, to solve this problem, I think that like in college basketball, there needs to be an early signing period. There's only one signing day. National Signing Day is always the first Wednesday in February. I think that if you want to fix the solution for some of this, it's never going to, and Tom's article is probably spot on. It's going to be here to stay. There's going to be backouts in the last minute. There's going to be change of heart. Commits flip all the time on the last day. They do the hat dance. And, oh, no! And they, the kids like that stuff. But at the same time, if there's a kid that is so committed to your program and just like, I can't wait to get to school. I cannot wait to get on campus. I can't wait to join. I want to sign right now. I want to secure my spot. It's a two-way street. So your school could be like, okay, you're the quarterback recruit for 2016. We need you. We can't lose you. You can sign here. We're ready to go with you. You can sign now in the early signing period. But at the same time, if the school's half and half on a kid and he's a plan B or plan C recruit and you got plan A out there who wants to wait till signing day, maybe you don't take B or C on the early signing period. It can be a thing where I think that the early signing period would just help alleviate some of the problems, but it would also still cause more and create different problems as well. So
also, I think
there is no way to completely...
If you limited it too, because you've got coaches going out there and they're scouting like 7th grade basketball and 7th grade football games, offering these kids recruitment letters. Like, you shouldn't be able to do that. If you want to sit there and maybe limit that to make it where you're in your 11th or 12th grade year of high school, that's when you can sit there and start offering these and then maybe have your early signing then.
But the interest level, you have to build the interest level when they're young. And that's part of the success of a growing school like Michigan State, who is like elevating themselves to this national level, where 10 years ago, these type of 4-star kids aren't looking at Michigan State. But now, because they have Curtis Blackwell, who's very involved in the Detroit school systems and lower Southeast Michigan, helping get those kids. 10 years ago, these kids were 8.
Right.
Now they're going to Michigan State because of that 10-year commitment to Michigan State.
And that's fine, but you don't have Mark Antonio offering an 8th grader like a letter of intent here, like, hey, we want you to come to Michigan State.
But
do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
those cases are
a little.
I mean, you had USC doing it.
Yeah, that's toned
with
down
quarterbacks
a little bit.
and wide receivers when they were 12 years old. Like, what are you going to do with a kid who's 12? That's kind of weird.
Yeah, no, that's a little strange.
That's like sleeping on your floor weird.
Sleeping on your floor weird.
It is.
No. By the way, Twitter just informed me that Lavert Hill, the Detroit King prospect that could play.
Tom was just talking about him.
Yeah, Tom was just talking about him. He was wearing a Michigan State shirt to school today.
That would be a big. That would be a big signing.
Well, my gut says he goes to Michigan State simply because all of his boys are, have already enrolled there. The Dream Team 2016 is kind of the thing. He was really big on Michigan State when he was still committed to Penn State. I think that he's liked the recruitment from Michigan as well. He could go to Michigan. I mean, who knows? I don't know. I don't have any inside information here. I see that kid as a fit for the Detroit King pipeline that's been developing for Michigan State. For him to go there, I think he'll have a better impact because if he wants to make it to the NFL, which is all these kids' goals, don't get yourself twisted. That I want to go to Michigan or I want to go to Michigan State because that's where I want to go to school. No, where am I going to go to get me in the NFL? Lavert Hill comes to Michigan State, probably becomes a lockdown corner in his second to third year, and gets drafted in the first or second round. I mean,
I can see it.
Now he could do that at Michigan too. Look at what they've done with Jordan Lewis.
It's true.
So I'm not saying one
really
school
like
is better
he
than the
came
other,
out of
but
nowhere.
wearing a Michigan State shirt, if that probably just throws everybody off because all the Michigans are like, oh, he's going to Michigan State, but all the Michigan State fans are like, oh, he's probably
This is what
doing that 'cause
recruiting
he's
is,
going to
though.
Michigan.
We're three grown men sitting around talking about a kid in high school and what T-shirt he's wearing. That's weird.
But we're doing it on a sports webcast.
We are.
Hey, do you guys want to have a sleepover?
But that,
Only what?
Climb a tree?
Didn't Harbaugh Netflix and chill with the kid?
I don't even want to
I'm pretty sure that's a photo. There's a photo out there that's
Netflix
one. We got more questions coming
Sure.
in. One from Michigan Matt, so we know where this is going. MSU's run is over now that Harbaugh is here. They have huge question mark at quarterback, and talk is Harbaugh as a QB whisperer. I don't think talk is a Harbaugh as a QB whisperer. I think a lot of people just know that. I mean, he was a quarterback. U of M will dominate MSU. One from, I believe this is Portia. Enjoying the chat, do you think U of M is worthy of their high recruiting ranking, liking the players they have so far?
I think so. If you look at some of the athletes that they ended up acquiring and some of the guys that they've picked up, I think they're top 5. I think that's about right. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Alabama because Alabama's had basically the streak of number 1s in the recruiting classes for years now, and there's now talk that they might not be able to secure that number 1 again. And you see what Alabama's done. I mean, shoot, they won the national title this year.
Right.
So it'll be interesting.
I mean, look, again, recruiting rankings to me are fun to look at, but I just go, okay. It's like the odds for if you look at the odds if you're into gambling, like you go, okay, that's fun to look at. Like, oh wow, 8-1. Oh geez, 20-1. Hey, 100-1. I go, okay, cool. Like we'll talk to me in 10 weeks after I've seen. So talk to me in 2 years. If we look back at this class for Michigan, that finishes probably top 3. I think it finishes it's 5 right now. I think they get 1 or 2 kids on National Signing Day, and I think they finish 3. If I'm guessing, I think they finish 3. If we look back on this class in 2 years' time after Michigan wins their second Big Ten title, or they get to the Big Ten championship game, or they do finally get to the playoff in 3 years, then we'll say that recruiting class was fantastic. And this is combined with the coaching that they got, combined with the everything else that they got.
And that's exactly what it is. It's great to have a really good recruiting class, but you need a good coach.
Right.
You need somebody to develop these guys and lead them. And you need both. And that's what you've seen with Nick Saban, and that's what you've seen with Alabama. You get the number 1 recruiting class, and you've got a great coach who develops these guys. And they have attrition over the course of years where just guys who were high recruits ended up just leaving the program to go play somewhere else because there's such a pipeline of guys who are in front of them that they're like, we're not going to get a chance to play, so we're going to go somewhere else.
Yep.
And they have that attrition, and they're able to withstand it and still win national titles.
All right, any more questions, Max? Because I want to talk about the
Netflix and chill. Harbaugh will do whatever it takes. NCAA title in 3 years. No, that's good.
I think that Michigan's got a real chance next year to win the Big Ten, and that would mean making them the Big Ten's selection for the college football playoff. I think they have enough guys coming back. If this quarterback, not Peters, he's the freshman coming in, but who's O'Korn? If he can have the type of success Jake Rudock did from beginning of the season to the end of the season, plus he's had a year already as a redshirt.
Everybody says he's supposed to be really
good.
good.
They'll probably have a real opportunity. Wrapping up here on the Detroit. I almost called it Detroit Sports Podcast. Sorry, I'm thinking about Friday already. I got to go on this guy's show on Friday. But wrapping up our weekly sports chat here. We always ended on a positive note. We talk about our adult rec league hockey experiences of the past week. You had an interesting one 2 weeks ago.
I did. I wanted to come on the show last Monday, but I couldn't speak because
what happened?
I ate a hockey stick.
You ate a hockey stick?
Well, I took one. It was a 2-hander across the face and busted out my
a cross or like a swing?
Like a swing.
Who
Yeah.
swings their stick?
Because take me back.
Okay.
Tell the story.
So
What did you do to this guy? Because clearly this was unprovoked.
and it wasn't a guy. So for some reason, they let women play in my men's league hockey team. Yeah, so it was a girl. So
She two-handed you. What did you do to her?
Okay, so we're sitting there, we're moving the puck out of the defensive zone. I'm out at center. I get the pass, and the pass comes in, and it ends up in my skates. So this girl comes up, and she tries to body me. She tries to check me. I don't really move because I'm much bigger than her. She then slashes at my skates, and the puck ends up going off to the boards. I push her in the shoulder, and I go skate for the puck. Next thing you know, I'm on the ground coughing my teeth up. So I don't know exactly what happened, so I had to get filled in by all the guys on my team, and I was like, what happened?
Probably having a good time with that.
They were like, no, man, she basically took her stick after you shoved her, and she took that to your face like a baseball swing. So she knocked out 2 of my teeth. I have a busted lip. This is kind of gnarly and gross, and I had to get a couple stitches in here. The whole inside of my mouth was busted open, and I had to go to the ER, and they had to cut parts of my mouth up.
What happened to this girl?
She ended up getting a 5 and a 10. And she got
okay. What about other than
suspensions? None.
Wow.
Which blows my mind. The politics at the place where I play it's awful. So
Well, let this be a lesson to you to wear a full. This is the moneymaker. So
Yeah.
I'm wearing a full guard.
Yeah.
And I'm not taking sticks across the face because
I now have a cage, and I absolutely hate it.
Oh man.
I used to wear a half shield, and that was after I took 2 pucks to the eye, like both eyes.
How
Awful. So
funny, dude.
yeah,
That girl
I've got-
whooped you.
Yeah. So I've got some new teeth coming. After I leave here, I'm gonna go get some more dental work done, and then
Okay.
in a couple weeks, I'm gonna have some more dental work done.
Oh my
and
gosh.
hopefully the
And
grill
this-
looks right
And this
soon.
girl just gets away without
Just
having to pay for any of this. You should
Murder.
sue her.
That's my mom said. My mom was so upset. You know how your
I
mom
know,
gets, right?
Yeah.
Oh, my poor little baby Adam
Right.
gets his teeth knocked out by
She's
some
like, this
girl.
is. I can't really say what she said, but
Oh my God.
she was not happy. She was like, you should sue her.
That
you need to
is-
look into this.
That is actually
I was
well
like,
for your damages. For damages, that's the best part. My emotional damages.
I think
You have
there
to live
there
with
was
that.
some
Let me put it to you like
damage
this.
there.
Let me put it
Yeah,
to you
I
like
would
this.
say.
When I went to the dentist, the nerve was hanging out of the one tooth. That's how bad the tooth was busted up. The dentist went in with like a set of tweezers and just pulled the nerve out. And like that was basically how the
Okay.
root canal was done.
Okay.
It was like it's all over.
Oh, we gotta move
Cleaned
on from
up.
this. Well, I scored another hat trick. That's my third in the last 5 games.
I'm
So
telling you,
I'm
gonna
catching
need,
fire, man.
I'm gonna need you to sub on my team.
Okay, you call me up. I'll come and play. When's the next game?
We normally play on Sundays when you play, but I think
Well,
our
hopefully,
games are,
if it
yeah.
can be the front end of the back-to-back doubleheader, I can zip down. All right, Adam, as always, thanks for your time, man. I appreciate
you.
it. I will be on his podcast, the Detroit Sports Podcast. You can follow them on Twitter, Detroit Podcast. We'll be on Friday, and that'll be out over the weekend and whatnot. Hopefully, they don't ask me embarrassing questions because I do
We're
have
going to
one.
talk about your rec league hockey success.
I do have one where athletically a female might have bested me.
Oh, really?
I will not share it today. That'll be the tease for the Detroit Sports Podcast on
look at
Friday.
that.
Max, thanks, man.
Thank you. We'll have this up later.
Yeah, we'll put
have
this
the
on.
interview with Tom Van
We'll put
Haren.
this on the line. We'll also have Adam's embarrassing story on the line. You can check that out at WXYZ.com. Great story today about the Oakland men's basketball team and how they have support from the Oakland men's swimming team in a very awkward way.
That sounds.
It's another good tease. You're going to have to
Yeah.
check that story out at 5 o'clock today on WXYZ. It'll also be on the line when we finish. Stop saying on the line. I just watched The Internship the other day. It's a great movie.
Oh, yeah.
I actually like that movie.
It's a good movie.
People gave it a
I'm
bad
a
rap.
fan of
I
that.
actually like that. Max, 9-volt battery to the tongue now.
No.
Do it.
No.
Come on.
We got to go.
He's got 2 of them over
He's
there,
got
too.
2 more. Electrocute yourself.
What are you doing over there?
That's all the time we have for today. Have yourself a great Monday and great week. We'll be back here next Monday, 12:30 to 1:30 as we are each and every week. Have a good one.